Hi, everybody. Calling to order this meeting of the Henley Homes and Royal Building Committee at 6:06 p.m. First order of business is to approve the meeting minutes from our March 1st meeting. Can I get a motion to approve those? Sarah moves, Dave seconds. All in favor, aye. Great, those are approved. Not a lot in terms of the chair's report. We have a lot of business to cover today. So we'll sort of jump right into it. Mostly it's been kind of subcommittees and subgroups of the committee working to get our commissioning agent arranged and also to continue work on the construction drawings that are going to be ready for bid and that have to go to the state, as well as refining cost estimates and talking about ad alternate lists. So I think, Jill, unless you have something else you want to add, I think we're probably better off just jumping right into the actual action items that we need to take care of this evening. So the first thing, Kevin, as I was trying to say before I had audio problems, was if you'd be willing to, I know you and Paul and Jameson, and thank you very much for doing this, spearheaded vetting and then interviewing the candidates for the commissioning agent role. Maybe you could do a quick explanation for the committee of what the commissioning agent does, how those interviews went, and what your all's recommendation would be.
Sure thing. So we had 3 bid submissions for the commissioning agent, and this is the firm that's going to be working closely with O&G AP to help make sure that our various mechanical and infrastructure systems are doing what they're supposed to and are designed to do. We interviewed all 3. The committee's sentiment was that CES was the clear leader. Their proposal was on point. Their presentation had a very deep understanding of the project and the timelines that we have, which typically a commissioning agent would be on board already. So we are recommending them be awarded the commissioning contract for the project. The other 2 firms lagged behind in project understanding, if you will, and their bids also did not include several components of the project, whether it be roofing or envelope commissioning.
And now is CES also the commissioning agent for the Ox Ridge project?
No, I believe SES is the commissioning agent over there.
Okay, all right.
CES is the engineer of record on that project.
Oh.
The design engineer.
Oh, they are, okay, all right. Paul, anything to add from that? I know you were at those meetings, as was Jameson.
No, other than CES is a well-renowned third-party commissioning agent throughout the state and the region. And as Kevin touched on, there was the most complete presentation, most complete proposal, and we should be in very good hands with them.
Okay. And then the next step would be, assuming we vote to move forward with them, would one of you guys be able to reach out to them, let them know they've been retained, and then I assume the next thing would be they would send an agreement to us that we would presumably, I don't know if we need to separately vote on the agreement unless it requires a lot of negotiation, but if the agreement is consistent with the scope and the RFP, I would assume that our vote tonight should be sufficient.
That's correct. Yes, I could reach out to them in the morning and let them know they were aware of this committee meeting and the need to vote on the motion. So they've been kept up to speed.
And I think from a pricing standpoint, all of them were kind of within the same range. CES was a little bit more expensive, but it sounded like you thought, and they were at $298,000 all in. But it sounded like you thought that they were the most thorough of the candidates.
That's right. They were the most thorough, and they also included all components of the commissioning process, where others had omitted those from their bid package.
Okay. Any questions, input from committee members on the commissioning agent process? With that,
Thank you
can we get a
for work.
motion?
Chris, we're
Oh,
going to need
I'm sorry,
3
go ahead.
motions, 1 for each, I think. Jill, don't you think? Yes? 1 for each. If they're considered different projects, do we need a commissioning agent for each project approval?
Probably.
I don't know that we did that. I think the architect's agreement and the CM agreement were for, we did one master agreement.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure. Just want to make sure it's all okay. Got it.
So can I get a motion to approve selecting CES for commissioning services for the Hinley Homes and Royal Elementary School renovation project? Moved by Paul, seconded by Dave. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And that motion, I guess I should revise that motion and say to enter into a contract to retain CES for commissioning services. Okay, so Kevin, if you wouldn't mind reaching out to them, letting them know they're on board, and have them send to us their form of retainer contract, that'd be great. Dave, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask Dave Cravenzola. Dave, where in the budget outline will I find our estimates for the commissioning agent? Will it be under the construction cost component?
Nope, it's an owner soft cost item, Dave.
Okay, great. I'll look for it. Thanks.
So,
Do we need to add it as a separate line item?
No, I just want to make sure we have it budgeted, have money from some category sufficient to cover it. That's all.
no, yeah, we have commissioning, although I don't know what the total value was for the commissioning scope. Dave,
All right,
Dave, we can take a look at that after if you want and see where it's an owner soft cost item. So
Yeah, let's not hold up the meeting.
yeah.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is discussion on the updated cost estimate of the ad alternate list, as well as the status of the construction drawings. And I think this is really a combination of Travis, Laurel, and Dave walking us through where that stands, what needs to happen vis-a-vis the state, and kind of where we, the progress that's been made over the past couple of weeks since we last met. And I guess specifically what it is the committee needs to approve so that you can take the next steps and go to OSCG&R.
Sure. Laurel, do you want to give or would you mind giving the recap of what the motions are and just explain why they're needed tonight?
Okay, so there are one-line motions, which I don't have right in front of me, but it's basically that the building committee is going to be voting tonight to approve the cost estimate, what our last cost estimate was, as well as the drawings. You're approving them. That then needs to go to the Board of Ed. They need to approve them, and that's what we need for going up to the state, which is next week. So along with your voting to approve, there's also signatures. So remember that signature page that we were sending around last time, that 442? We need the chairman's signature, we need the Board of Ed signature, we need the superintendent's signature, and the architect's signature. So this is a repeat of the phase 1. This is just a lot more information that you're looking at. So it's for each individual school. You guys are voting tonight to approve the cost estimate as well as the bid documents, and that starts the process for this whole state review and approval.
Laurel, I have the actual language that you have sent me that's on the board agenda if you want, if anybody wants to hear it, or do you need it?
Well, Sarah, you have that actual language, right? So when the time comes, and we review it, you're prepared to
I
provide
will
those
read it.
motions, correct?
I will read it.
Okay.
I have them.
Yeah,
Yep.
you
Laurel
have
gave
it.
me the project numbers. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Great. So that's the overview of what it is. Now, so a couple things we did. I guess it was almost 2 weeks ago now. We had a small group meeting, as we talked about we were going to do, to talk about the estimates and give a picture of where we are. Actually, we may have at the last building committee meeting given some ideas, but we were still finalizing the numbers for the 3 projects. So if you want, I can take a walk through that at a you know, relatively higher level as far as where we are, show you where we fall in comparison to the design development documents, and then give you an update on what that relates to as far as percentage over or under, and what we have for contingency funds. If you want me to go through that.
Yeah, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. And then I
Sure.
guess, Laura, before we depart from the approval process, we had a fair amount of discussion at the group meeting Dave was describing on possible add alternates. Is that just for us internally, or does that also need to go to the state as part of the package that we've approved and that they need to sign off on?
Typically, you would approve the list of alternates, and yes, it does go to the state in the form of a spec section. So once the list is confirmed, it's actually written into the specs. You have the right to change it afterwards. You would modify it, but you guys should decide on what your list of alternates are prior to us going up to the state.
Right. And so, Travis, I did get the version. I know, we had gone through that at the meeting. So I do have that. So I can, if I'm the one sharing, I can go through the list and we can talk about that. So getting some good thumbs up over there from Travis. So I'm going to go with it.
Yeah, and
So,
I know Travis, you had included that in the drawing packages that you had sent around that we forwarded on to the committee members.
You're muted, Travis.
Or he's having audio problems too.
Or you're not plugged in.
Oh, now.
There we go.
Better?
Yep.
There we go.
Ah, okay. Huh, that's why before when I said nothing happened. Okay. Once you approve the alternate list, we will incorporate it into the documents. We have to, bubble the areas of work that are will be alternates, so the contractors know how that work is defined.
Okay.
So if you want, I can review the estimates first. If that works.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. Can you see this Excel sheet?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. I figured this would be easier rather than calling up separate PDFs for each of them. So, and actually, I'm going to just. Never mind. Okay. So first is Henley, and this is, I believe, we showed this to you at the design development phase. It gives kind of the large buckets of money in the project, and this is the design development, which was the previous estimate, and this is the construction documents estimate this is the estimate we had conducted on the documents from last month. So the total construction costs, we have 24,634,606, which we went from being approximately 320,000 under budget to 398 over budget. But with that, we have contingency funds. We have both the CM contingency and the owner's contingency. The total for that is $1.663 million, which is just about 6% of the construction cost. So when we have the owner's soft costs and the owner's contingency, we're estimating a total project cost of $27,649,559, which in comparison with the $27.550 million that was approved, were 99,000 over budget, which is 0.36%, which at this stage in the game is not a concern to us. But as we had talked about before, that's why we also have this list of alternates for some control on bid day should we need to to accommodate that, to make sure we're within budget.
And Dave, don't forget, I think you still have a design contingency in there as well, right? A small percent.
That's correct. That's correct. We do, because as I had mentioned, the estimate that we had done was on a
Previous set of drawings.
Yeah, back in
so
February. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're accounting for, we have 2% included for that.
So just to clarify, the 398,000 means that design and escalation contingency is used, or that it remains. That's just a construction total, correct?
That is presuming that full, this value, this 1.1 million will be consumed.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
So what remains is 6%, and assuming if the bids were to come in exactly as described, then we would have to use about $400,000 of the $1.66 million, correct?
Well, give me 1 second to process that, Jill, because technically this value includes us expending the 644,000 of CM contingency.
Okay.
So if we were over, then it would be, if we were over this full amount, and we went through the entire,
Gotcha.
you know what I mean? If we burnt through the entire CM contingency, then the balance of that 400,000 would have to come out of the owner's contingency.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Which would arguably leave us, yes, with what, 2%, 3%? Again, I know that these are just at this point in time, but
Hey,
5%.
Jill, this is David. Let me just try to phrase it slightly different. If I'm reading this chart right, if we use 100% of the CM contingency and 100% of the design and escalation contingency, we're going to be $400,000 roughly over. So what that says is, as long as we only utilize around $230,000 of the CM contingency, we should be flat.
Well, I guess you could look at it this way, is that, as you see when on the construction, we're 398 over, but the bottom line number is, if we're to fall within the $27.5 million overall project budget, we're only 99,000 over.
Got it.
So if you look at it, if we consumed all of the CM contingency, you would be able to spend approximately 900,000 of the $1 million owner contingency and be on budget.
Perfect.
Okay.
And
Does that seem kind of at this stage in a project? Does that seem tight, or does that seem about right?
No, I mean,
I don't really have a frame of reference.
Yeah, for the last estimate to be, again, a fraction of a percent off of the budget, I'm not concerned.
It doesn't get really much, more on point than that.
And
so
Dave,
go ahead, Dave.
no, I was just going to ask, after the meeting, could you share this Excel spreadsheet with us?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thanks, man.
And then one more question about the baseline number. Have the alternates already been pulled out of this number, or are they included?
So some of them are already, they are already excluded from the number.
Okay.
So just for instance, if I quickly bounce to this, I know that this for Henley, this 74,000 is already, I believe, not in. It's not in the number that I just presented to you.
Thank you.
Yep, similar to the Royal, and then there was, I believe, one other one. This one, the green roof. I think this.
Dave, we're
and
not seeing what you're pointing to, I think.
You're not? Are you not seeing the Excel?
We see the
Oh, wait a
Excel,
minute.
but we don't see
We don't see the alternate.
what you're pointing to.
You know what? I'm going to stop sharing for a moment because I think I selected the wrong thing. I think I selected to show
Oh yeah, just your Excel program and not the screen.
just my Excel program and not, or just that one Excel window versus my screen. So I'm sorry. So going back, can you see this now?
Yes.
Okay, so the alternates that we will review, this alternate 1 and then the alternate 5, those are two that those values are currently not included in the numbers that we just talked about.
Thank you.
Sure.
But for example, at alternate 4 is included?
Correct. Right now, the number that we have is including $95,000 for that work.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
that's only because the cafeteria and the green roof were previous alternates that we had been discussing throughout the process.
Correct.
Yes. Okay, so do we, anyway, no, never mind. Keep going, please.
You sure?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Are there any more questions on Hindley or the layout, or is there any additional information you want me to present on that before we move on to Holmes? Okay, I'll take that.
Hey, by me, Dave Martin. Anything from your end?
No, only if he would share the list of alternates as well, that would be great.
Yeah. And Dave, what I'll do is I'll send those both over to you, and if it's something where you have a question on it, we can hop on the phone tomorrow if you want, if there's something specific about the spreadsheet you'd like to know more about.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. Or actually, maybe well, whatever. Tomorrow, Monday, either one. But okay. So moving on to Holmes. If you remember, Holmes is the project that we have been trending further over budget than the other two, and this is going back to originally the alignment of the scopes, and that Holmes started with a lesser scope of work, but eventually ended up being brought similar in the value of scope. So at DD, we saw ourselves 8.1% over budget through the efforts of the design team. At the end of CDs, that value is now 2.1%. So the construction went from 2.9 million over to 1.37 million over. And similarly there, we're looking at between the CM contingency and the owner contingency, approximately $1.5 million in contingency. So
what would you attribute the reduction in the construction number to?
Travis, I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't know if you could summarize what you think some of the strategies were.
I think on this one that the old number still had like a full underpinning number in it. I think a lot of that came out. I think that was a big reduction.
Okay.
I think that was actually a good bulk of it.
But all the soil, all the soil stabilization work.
Yeah, and just the underpinning work itself. I think there was just a bigger percentage assumed here, and that we were able to cut a lot of that back. And it was a small fraction of what was needed.
Okay.
I think that was the bulk of it. I can't remember the other smaller kind of items off the top of my head. And don't forget too, it's also a part of the design contingency that came out and then picked up some of that number, because you reduced the design contingency from I think you were carrying 5 to 2%.
I think at DD we were probably holding a 6%. Yeah, it was either 5 or 6% at design development for design. Yeah.
Right.
Which
so that was a chunk too.
Right. You see that right here. But there were things that were revised, because as you see it is that generally what you see as you're going through the design phases is that this number will continue to trend downward, right? If I were to have brought the schematic design estimate up, this number was even larger than the 1.9. So as you're getting closer to bidding, the design and the escalation value is going down because the design is being more refined, so there are less unknowns, and then you're closer to bid time, so you're taking out the risk of escalation. So as this is going down, technically you're seeing these numbers going up because to some extent of it, these contingencies are rolling into it. But you'll see here,
Right.
like Travis said, site work, even though that happened, this value is still $470 or $450,000, $470,000 lower than it was before. So that's a big step in the right direction. So that's homes in a nutshell. And then as we move on to Royal, we continue to project that as being under budget. There we've bottom line total project approximately 1.25 million under the $29.1 million budget, which is up 4.3%. On this project, having the largest budget, that contingency value there is approximately $1.7 million. So at the bottom here, I did just summarize, even though I understand they're separate projects, 3 separate funding. However, just to look at it globally across the projects, on $82 million worth of work, right now we're projecting approximately $600,000 under budget, which is 0.75% under budget, and that is including just shy of $5 million in contingency.
Perfect. Any further questions from the committee members on what Dave presented? And I know, subject to Dave sending around the ad alternate list for each of these, that would, Travis, is there anything specific? I'm sorry, were you going to say something, Dave Martin?
I was just going to say, I'm happy to, if maybe, I don't
Very
know
helpful.
if we want to do this together, Travis, or if you want to walk through the alternates.
I think that would be helpful because we do need to approve them tonight.
Yeah, just flip
right?
to that screen and let's take a look.
Sure. So just a quick thing on this. What had happened was we had gathered as a small group a couple weeks back, and the design team had put an alternates list together. We had, one of the things I want to say is that when we had performed the last estimate for each of the projects, we had come up with a sizable value engineering list, and that's part of our service, is that when we do the estimate, we come up with ideas for what are some ways that we could reduce costs of the project. And we came up with lists, and what happened was we sent those lists to the design team, and they had gone through those, and we had a discussion, and there were some things that we had proposed. I'm trying to think of, Travis, do you remember a couple of them off the top of your head that they were non-starters because the scope that we had said, hey, what if you take this out? They were things that the project was required to do because they were part of the local review process. I don't know if you remember one specifically, Travis.
Not off the top of my head, but it's also they also might have been more integral to the overall, design. These are all easy to pull out, and most of them are easy to do at a later date if you wanted to.
Right. So just to let you know that we had started with a larger list and had worked together with the design team to try to figure out the feasibility of doing that. And this was the list that we ended up coming to, that we agreed could be implemented from a design standpoint, from a construction standpoint, and not go against any of the key drivers to the project.
Right.
So the second step of that was, when we met as a small group, was coming up with priorities. And priority meaning the highest priority are, if on bid day the money is there, what is the order that the group feels is appropriate for which items are to be selected first.
And that's
So with-
just merely to sort it for your understanding. You're not locked into taking them in that order. You
Right.
can take any combination of these. But it's our understanding that, for example, the first three are just more important things to get done.
Okay.
So do you want to, we
So-
can walk through
so
these?
Travis, do you want to walk through what those alternates actually are?
Yeah.
So I think the cafeteria commons ones are, I think we're aware of those because they've been with us the whole time. And I should say too, we were trying to balance these across all three projects. They're not quite there because just some schools it was just harder to pull certain packages out than others. But that was a goal, so it didn't look like we were favoring one versus the other. And you'll see too that we targeted a lot of the site work because the site work is also easier to come back later and do, and it less affects the interior of the building, and less affects the ed specs also. The cafeteria commons lighting, so that was Hindley and Royal because homes we need to do because of the more extensive HVAC work. Hindley and Royal, we have designs that we can keep the ceiling and have the HVAC work in there, but the better project would definitely be to redo the ceiling and lighting in that space.
So for homes, it's part of the base.
It's
bid
part of the base
package, right?
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just too invasive to not replace the ceiling at that point.
Right. Okay.
The site work, proposing to remove some of those additional spaces that we had, I think mostly off to the side where we were expanding some of the parking lots. And again, you can come back and do a paving job and do those at a later date if you wanted to, but we know that that was a high priority, so that's why it's up on the top of the list. Add-all 3 is to remove the oil tank at homes. Going down to add-all 4.
Hey,
This is
Travis,
yes.
before you do that, I'm not familiar with the oil tank thing at homes. Can you just tell us quickly what that is?
Yeah, there's an old oil tank that's out across from the main entrance in the parking lot that is no longer used by the district, and it's something that's been needing to be removed.
So it's currently underground.
Yes, it's underground. Exactly.
Not in use. It's been there for a while. It hasn't been creating a problem. We don't think there's any leakage issues or anything around related to it.
Kevin, is that true?
Right. Just to edit though, it hasn't been around for a while. It's only about 8 to 10 years old. So it is relatively young, but we do not use it. We are exclusively on natural gas. So it would make sense to pull it out if possible.
Before there is
at some point. At some point we're going to want to, right?
That's right.
And if I'm not mistaken, it came up on the MEP walkthrough. And so as we were discussing potential alternates, it reemerged as work that had been, what let me call quasi-identified, but that really should be done. So it made sense to put on the add alternate list, correct?
That's right. Correct.
Add-alt 4 is the plaza reduction at Hindley for $95,000. So that would go down. It would, I think you're left with pretty much just a paved or a concrete sidewalk rather than the larger plaza with seating area. The green roof's been in
again, that one.
Yep.
That one remains in the base bid, correct, Travis? It just.
Yes, that has not
the
come
way
out
it's structured,
yet.
it just can be pulled out as an alternate now.
Yes. Correct.
Okay, thank you. Would you, going forward, identify anything else that remains in the base bid?
Yes. So far, the only one that is the first one we've discussed, the cafeteria.
Meaning what? That
I'm sorry, yeah, the cafeteria and the green roof are the ones that are currently not in the base bid.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So the green roof is on the lower portion. Well, because Hindley is a one-story addition and the second story classrooms overlook that roof, we have an alternate to put a green roof on top of that structure. And that would be, that's like a 4-inch tray system that you put on top of the roof. That could easily be done at a later date. The structure is being designed to handle the load of the green roof. At alt 6, which is in the base bid right now. It's part of the base project. Those are skylights. We have a couple of skylights at Royal at both the music edition and the second grade classroom edition. So we would just take that out and continue the normal acoustic ceiling and remove the skylights. At alt 7, that's, I think, just minimizing some of the site work. So there's some expensive granite benches, curved benches. That's part of the landscaping package for the courtyards. So we would look to remove that and do that at a later date if you wanted to. It's not critical for the operation of that, but we know it's kind of a less. Yes. Sorry,
What
Joe.
is the meaning of the note on the right, Travis, please? It says on the drawings we received.
Oh, I think that was a communication between us and Bruce at ONG's estimator, just to coordinate. Yeah. I think originally he didn't know that this was part of the Royal documents, but it should be. It is part of the Royal documents.
Wonderful. So we have drawn these benches at all 3 sites.
Yes, because I think that did come up in the P&Z or the P&Z comments.
It was there was an ARB. Those were ARB suggestions.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. So landscape is currently showing them. They're in the documents. Maybe the ones for Royal weren't in there at the time when Bruce was originally looking at it.
So if it's I'm sorry, I should have asked this at the beginning. If it's in red, are you showing it as a potential reduction, as something it's in the base, but you would take it out? Is that?
No, I'm not sure why we have the font like that, to be honest with you. It's just.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you say it's shown, just taking the site furniture point for a second, you said it's shown on the landscape plan, but you're saying you might take those out or you might add those.
Well, so for instance, right now they're in. So the estimates that we just walked through,
right?
We are already figuring on that $113,000 worth of work being in the project. So
right.
So think of it from a standpoint of where we will be on bid day is that for Hindley, we will have approximately $400,000 of work that is not base bid work that we have the ability to accept if the budget allows it.
Right, so even though these items are shown on the drawings right now, Travis and his team are going to bubble them and say, don't include in your number. We're going to define this as an add alternate that's going to be separate on the bid form so that it won't be in the bids that we receive, but you will get all the pricing for it to accept if you can afford it.
Correct.
Got it.
Just a way to protect the budget.
Understood.
So yeah, all these items are shown now.
And that's part of why it's prioritized, right? There are.
Excuse me?
Jill, say that again.
Sorry, I was just, the reason they're prioritized also, I have a terrible connection. Can you talk about the prioritization and why they're?
I want to say that I think the prioritization came, I think, right when we had the small group meeting with a couple members of the committee and the ONGAP and KG&D teams of trying to help put into perspective, I think, what the alternates were and what were the ones that we felt were the most important to accept if the money was there.
Right.
Am I misspeaking in that? That was my recollection of when that.
No, that sounds right. That sounds right.
That's how I remember. I mean, it's really just
Yeah,
to organize it
I
for
think that's
discussion
accurate.
purposes.
Yeah, the state does not care what the
And
priority
while
is.
that's,
When you go up to the state, they don't care about a
Mhm.
priority. It's just really for you to absorb the information.
thank you. And while I think it may be worth discussing whether or not the plaza reduction at Hinley belongs as a priority one, but otherwise,
Mhm.
I'm in agreement.
But that's just internal, right? That's for our own purposes. I think per
Right.
what Laurel just said, the state's just going to see a single list, I assume, right? They're
Right,
not
that's
gonna,
right. You guys need to approve this list. You need to approve, you want to do alternates 1 through 8. That's what our list is. And then everything else this is all internal information.
Yeah, I think
And
to split it up, would actually probably be confusing for the state. They'll start asking questions like, why are there two lists?
Yeah, no
well,
reason.
and
No
honestly,
reason.
they really don't, like Laurel said, they really don't care.
Right.
It really
Understood,
doesn't
but why
matter.
make it? Why even give them the opportunity to talk about it?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they love talking, so they would take that opportunity.
I would just suggest at this stage in the game that these numbers do not change because my team might have already started picking some of these out.
Might
So,
have,
yeah,
right?
at least my engineers, actually probably the civil and landscape probably started picking these up because we did just share with them the other day in anticipation that we would be at least doing this. Because there's no harm in putting an add alternate there because if you really
No.
want it, you can just take it. It's breaking out the cost so you see what that cost is and then you have the option.
At the risk of A, opening a can of worms, and B, lengthening the meeting, were there any suggested add alternates on the MEP side that Bldg Gallagher proposed, or were they pretty much everything they were doing they wanted in their base spec and base plans?
Yeah, with alternates on the mechanical side, it gets tricky because it's such an integrated system. So you can't just downgrade the system and have an alternate for it because then you need a complete design of that alternate system.
I see.
So that is definitely that's a more difficult thing. You could do something like maybe you get a cheaper lighting package. But again, then those fixtures need to be picked out, designed. Yeah. So that's a little harder on the MEP front. If we had, maybe a standalone piece like we had a radiant heating somewhere in the floor, or we knew we had a certain amount of geothermal wells, that could be a number that can be pulled out. But usually when you remove mechanical equipment, it's still you have to go back with something else. So there's a second design involved, and it's not a straight savings, just an offset.
Didn't we have an alternate for the roof, for the ceilings in the gyms for the LEDs?
For this, I'm not sure if we have alts for that. I
Or are we
could
just
check on
doing
that for the
LEDs in
lights.
the gyms? I know at one time, Kevin, refresh my memory, right? Didn't we? That was
I
a
actually
discussion
think
at one point.
it was discussed at one point, but I don't think it made it other than, no, actually, I can't recall, actually. I apologize.
All right. Well, then then my assumption is we're replacing all the lights in all the gyms with LED. I thought or one of them was in the actual auditorium too. There was a couple ad alternates I thought for lighting.
Well, the cafeteria common space, I think, is well, at least in the one school, is the auditorium. But I don't.
Okay.
I have to check on because I don't think we're touching the gym space right now.
No, all right.
No, I'm looking at removals. Nothing in the gym. We are adding mechanical equipment to the gym, but we're not touching the lighting in the gym, at least at Hinley. So I can circle back with BGA on that one.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Let me see. Yeah, nothing.
Okay. Any other input or discussions from the committee on the add alternate list?
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I guess we're being recorded again.
Hey guys, I'm so sorry. I don't know. I meant to unmute myself and I hit the recording button. Apologies. I thank you for all of your hard work on all of these. To Paul's point, is there anything that we're missing lighting in? That there's anything, I mean, I know that the cafeteria and the auditorium are the same in Henley. Is there anything else that may not be have a, an integrated system, as you mentioned, that might be worth looking at?
I mean, not that I can think of. I mean, I just wasn't aware, I just wasn't thinking that the gyms were in scope, so that's why.
Okay.
I need to circle back with BGA on that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
ahead,
I wouldn't, if they're not in scope, I wouldn't add it at this stage. Just,
Understood.
Thank you.
The last thing is the actual construction drawings themselves. I know Travis sent those around as PDFs, and hopefully people had a chance to look at them, although they were sort of in the neighborhood of 125 pages per school, and they were pretty. But I guess rather than having Travis go through them school by school, do people have any questions or issues or things they want to talk about on the construction drawings themselves? Because we do need to approve those for submission to the state as well.
And I would say the important part there is that, the general scope has not changed, and we've just been refining the documents, compared to what we've been looking at throughout this whole process. But yes, if something comes up, such as what Paul just brought up, that you think is a question that you need to ask, if something like that was missing or you're unaware of.
Yeah, I know
that's a
this
good
is
one to hit,
this is another potentially dangerous question, but do you think there were any material changes from the design development drawings that we approved that you think you should call out to people so that, in the nature of kind of full disclosure?
No, totally agree. We should be calling those out, and I'm trying to think if there was anything really major. I will say that as we're going through the state requirements over the past month, there were a couple things that did come up, and one of them is an acoustic item that we are working through with both our acoustician and the mechanical team. There are certain standards that we have to meet in Connecticut for acoustics in rooms. So that is something we've been tweaking some of the mechanical equipment and tweaking maybe some of the brands to get that within reason and to get close to meeting that acoustic level. But because of the nature that this is an existing building that's mostly being renovated, there are parts of the older building where we are simply doing a one-to-one replacement with to replace the old unit ventilators, where we won't be in compliance with the sound requirement, because the nature of a unit ventilator is louder than current code allows. But because we're dealing with an existing building that doesn't have tall ceilings, I mean, that was the most efficient way forward in that space. But we are replacing it with better units than you had. It's just not quite up to if it was a brand new building. So that's one we've been working on. And as far as the others, I would just say that the documents you received are continuing to get developed. We've been working on them this week. And it's really just refinement, coordination, notating to get them in better shape for bid documents at the end of April. So we needed to issue you something on early this week, so you had something to react to. So we had a dated set that you are approving, and then we can get that also in front of the Board of Ed.
Great. Any input, questions from committee members on the construction drawings in their current state? So, well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Chris, I was just going to add that we've also an update on where we're at with the different approvals from the town that's been we're starting to incorporate into their comments into the set. So on Monday, we did receive comments back from the third-party reviewer.
Right.
A little late in the stage. That's why I think in a perfect world, everything here would be sequential in how we go about adding comments, submitting to everyone, everyone's clear sign off before we move to the next step. But in this case, to try and stay on this accelerated schedule, there's some overlap. So we did receive his comments on Monday. We've been in communication with Joe Vierstig on his comments, and we're compiling responses, making incorporations into the set. And we also simultaneously have comments back from P&Z. And so we're working on the P&Z comments. We're going back and forth with Hervé at P&Z and incorporating those. So the goal is to get all those comments into the next set that we then submit to state. So that's been the big undertaking this week. And we're getting there. I won't lie, we're not quite there yet because there's a lot of moving pieces, but generally
on
the comments were, yep.
I'm sorry, go. Yeah, on the P&Z front, just because we had that slight bump in the road with regard to the roofs and the solar panels and setbacks, if anything comes up from Hervé's review and input that seems like it needs attention from the committee, please let us know.
Will do. I think we were clear to him that the solar is not in this project scope. He gets that.
Understood.
And he did clarify that the 20-foot setback was with regards to mechanical equipment, and that the mechanical equipment he wanted to see screened if it was within the 20 feet. So we weren't screening everything that was within 20 feet because some of the items, almost some of the mechanical units become worse when you screen them, because from just the vantage point of where you are on the ground looking up, they're kind of hidden anyway from being on a 2-story building. You start adding screening in front of them that's even taller, it almost exacerbates the problem. So we will continue to have back and forth with him on that. He did, other small items.
Yeah. No, understood. I just know that was one of those things that needed some attention, and we seem to have sorted it out. So rather than doing too much back and forth, if you need our attention on stuff, let us know.
Understood. Yeah, to jump in. And to be honest, both Joe Verstig, the third-party reviewer, and Hervé have been very reasonable to talk to and communicate with, and
great.
So they're very helpful.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Laurel, is there a specific? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jill.
On the question of screening, just to double check, the screening that we have in the ad alternate is down on the ground dumpster screening. It's not what P&Z was requiring, correct?
Oh, wait, I was talking about rooftop screening for the mechanical equipment.
Yeah, no, Jill, I think correct is yes is the answer to your question, Jill.
I'm just double checking. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question then, Jill?
I just was double checking that in the screening that we have listed as an ad alternate was screening of dumpsters on the ground. That wasn't something that came as a requirement from P&Z, correct?
No, Travis, she just wants to make sure that none of our alternates would be possibly removing work that was required by P&Z.
Yes, so I think
no, the alternate does not have to do with the P&Z required screening.
Yeah, and I just wanted to elaborate on the enclosure alternate. I think the alternate is not to get rid of the enclosure. The alternate is to do a lesser material enclosure. I think we had a masonry enclosure, and we're switching here to a fence.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That sounds about right.
And everything is compliant.
Yes.
All right. Just double checking. Thank you.
Yep.
So then I guess the next thing is, Laurel, you said we need a specific resolution for each of the schools. You have that, Sarah? Okay.
I have it. I can read it specifically.
Okay, do you want to read the resolution for
I'm happy to.
Hanley?
I have a question for you. Is this
Yeah.
incorporating the construction drawings? Are we voting on those separately? Laurel, is that?
I understood that we were, well, yeah, go ahead, Laurel.
It's one sentence and it has both the estimate and the bid documents in the one
Okay,
sentence.
that's
So
referring to the construction drawings. I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so for
So
the
it has
first
well,
one,
shouldn't it also have the add alternate list?
You don't need that in the motion for the state. You just need, the only thing they care about is you guys improving the cost estimate and the plans. That Travis just has to put an alternate section when we go up there. So you guys just need to do that on your own. That does not need to be part of the motion.
Okay, but we need to approve the add alternate list as a matter of committee governance.
Correct. So that we know moving forward, we have that document moving forward. You can always change your minds, but we really
Okay.
need to settle.
Then Sarah, why don't we
Yep.
do each of the
Yep.
official resolutions, and
I'll
then
read
we'll
'em.
separately do the
We'll
add
vote on
alternate
the add
list.
alternate list. Yep,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. For number 1, to approve the Phase 2 bid documents as prepared for bidding dated 3/20/2023 and the professional cost estimate dated 3/20/2023 for Hinley Elementary School, state project number 035-0121E/A. Would someone like to make the motion? Chris Price, seconded by David Martin, all voting in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. Jill, yes.
Paul.
Aye.
Thank you, Paul. Hang on. Okay. Second one, to approve the Phase 2 bid documents as prepared for bidding dated 3/20/2023 and the professional cost estimate dated 3/20/2023 for Holmes Elementary School, state project number 035-0122E/A. Who would like to make the motion? Chris Price, second by David Martin, all voting in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Hang on 1 second. Okay, last one, to approve the Phase 2 bid documents as prepared for bidding dated 3/20/2023 and the professional cost estimate dated 3/20/2023 for Royal Elementary School, state project number 035-0123E/A. Who would like to make the motion? Chris Price, seconded by David Martin. Would all vote in favor, please? Yes. Jill,
Aye.
Thank you, Paul.
Aye.
Thanks,
Aye.
guys. We have the approvals in place now.
Great. And so then the separate motion would be, I assume we can do this as just a single add alternate list, right? We don't need to do it for each of the 3 schools. But how do we want to describe it? Do we want to describe it as the add alternate list prepared by KG&D and ONG AP dated? Do we have a date on it just so we can get this correct?
We can put whatever if you want, so it's consistent. Travis,
Yeah.
we can take that, make it a PDF, and we could probably put the same March 20th date on it.
Yeah,
That'll be
let's do
helpful,
that.
thank
So
you.
it's okay. So then could I get a motion to approve the add alternate list for each of the 3 elementary schools, items 1 through 8, I believe it is, dated March 20th, 2023, prepared by KG&D Architects and ONG AP. Jill moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Thank you. I realized that I had skipped over public comment before we jumped into the substance of the meeting, and Corey Vesey has been patient enough as a member of the public to listen to all of this. So I did want to give, if Corey or any other members of the public, I don't see anybody else, had anything that they wanted to say or add, I wanted to give them that opportunity. I apologize for taking it out of order, but I did want to get to public comment if anybody had anything to add.
Thanks, Chris. I was actually here to listen today. So
Okay.
maybe next time I'll have a comment.
All right, great. Thank you. Really, the last thing on the agenda, I just wanted to highlight the upcoming key dates that Laurel and Dave had put together. Thank you guys for this. We had said back in the spring of last year, I can't believe we've been doing this now for a little over a year. But that there was I was seeing this project in a number of distinct phases. And, the first phase was getting the money. The second phase was drawing the pictures. And we're now coming up on the third phase of actually, about to start the construction, getting the final, the state approvals and bidding and starting the construction. But apologize for shorthanding those first couple of phases, but trying to keep it simple. And as folks will see, there's a lot coming up over the course of the next few weeks. The next big milestone, our approvals this evening are really one piece of it. The Board of Education is meeting on the 28th to hopefully give the same approvals that we gave this evening. And on that same day are the meetings for Hindley with OSC, GNR, and then the next day, the 29th, with Royal, and then Holmes is on the 12th. So I assume you guys, when you meet with OSC, GNR, those meetings will be pending Board of Education approval, which will presumably happen that evening. But
Yeah.
at least it will have had the building committee approvals going into the first round of state meetings.
Yes, I'll say now that it's likely that in those first two meetings there are going to be items that we will need to add, and we won't have ready for Kermit's review. That we'll have time between then and the subsequent week to get what he needs. Because I don't know if we're going to have sign off from all the town players for that meeting.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But as you see, things really, you look at the schedule and things really start to accelerate with, the start of bidding a month from now, basically. Started bidding for Hindley and Royal on April 28th, the start of bidding for Holmes on May the 5th. And we're really off to the races. So there's really April, May, and part of June left in the school year, with the anticipated start of construction shortly after the school year ends. So a lot of activity coming up. Again, a big thank you to the design team for all the really, really hard work they've been doing, and Kevin interfacing with those guys. So really appreciate all of that.
Chris,
Yeah,
if
go
I
ahead.
could just, so I just, I kudos to Laurel for getting this list together. I do want to just let the committee know too that, as you can see in that list, like you said, it is a very pinpoint, threshold type of list of like things have to happen in a very exact and one after another order, right? So we're embarking on this process with the state that we know sometimes has some ups and downs, and we got to get around. As they request stuff, we have to respond to it and get it in. We right now we've accounted for, Laurel. What is it? Is it 2 weeks that we've accounted for the state to approve us, or is it 3 weeks?
No, it's closer to 3 weeks.
Okay. So, right now, so we are very cognizant of the importance of getting in to these campuses this summer to start the work. Okay. But what we are also doing too is we're starting some discussions about making sure we have some plan Bs in place for if the approval process takes longer, and our window of time for being there on these campuses this summer before school is shortened or eliminated because of the approval process. So, like I said, this is, we're getting out of the realm a little bit of what we can directly control as we go through this approval process, but know that we are starting to think ahead to, what are the strategies if things don't go according to this schedule in the next, upcoming weeks as we go through the state process. So,
right.
I mean, that's a good point, because I was just going to say that everything is bottlenecking with all the different agency approvals. They have we let them know that we have state meetings next week. They know that nothing. The good news is nothing looks to be a large hurdle on their comments sheets. It's just a matter of kind of putting it all together and getting it out to them. But
is there anything we can do to help, whether from an outreach standpoint or otherwise with the town bodies?
no, I don't think so. Hervé's been very open to saying, yep, once you guys bring that in, we'll take a look at it and sign off on it. Joe's been very responsive, the third party, and then it's a matter of how he works with the actual building official, Mike. So, but if we see anything that you need, it's really about us collecting all the comments that came in really at the beginning of this week and getting it out to them as we're also preparing state documents for their review.
Right.
So
Right.
it's
So then in terms of, for the committee's benefit, it looks like on Laurel's list, coincidentally, I think it would be when we have our next scheduled meeting, which is April 5th, is highlighted meeting to approve the phase 1 trade contractor for the 3 schools. When do you expect, so you expect to have bids on the 30th. Will you be able to, what's the process from the time you receive the bids? What happens from receipt of the bids to a meeting on the 5th when we're supposed to be approving the contractor?
Once we've gotten all the bid results, we vet them, we make sure that the proposal matches, we just do a double check once we've read the bid results, and then we schedule scope review meetings with the design team, the engineer, our MEP coordinator, and we will make sure that whoever the potential low bidder is fully understands the project. So that's what takes the several days or a week or so to make sure that we vetted the contractor properly. Sometimes they need to give us more information. So it's really just the buffer zone, the buffer time that we have between receiving bids and being prepared to present it to you. I may
And
not be
phase
able,
1 was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I may not get it to you well in advance. Like you normally like to see things Friday for the Wednesday or something. It may be tighter than that, where we're just, we'll be just going to you the day before or something. You'll know who our recommended contractor is.
Well, assuming those bids come in on the 30th, when would you want to get together? You said you would want the design team, or the design team. Would you include the committee members, the sort of the subcommittee, design subcommittee from the committee?
No, this is to get into the technical nitty gritty of the design to make sure that the bidder has accounted for everything. You guys don't need to be there for that. You're invited, but you don't need to be there.
But presumably you'll then make a recommendation. You'll highlight the low bidder and you'll let us know that the low bidder qualifies, and you recommend that we proceed with them or not, right?
Correct. Yeah, it will be the lowest qualified responsible bidder, whoever that is.
Right. But to Laurel's point, for instance, if, Paul, who has, expertise in this field, wants to be a part of those meetings, then we'll make sure he's included so that he can ask the questions he needs, things like that. So the committee is openly invited to being part of the meetings, but it's not a requirement.
Go ahead.
They will be virtual, so it'll be simple. You'll hear me yakking in the background if that's what you'd like to do.
What I might ask, though, is just to save time and skip a step, is as things come in, rather than, for example, just sending them to Jill and me, maybe just sending them to the committee generally so people have them, and if people want to attend, I'm really looking at Paul, who's not on his camera, but as David noted, people with expertise want to attend any of those sessions. As you're scheduling them, just letting us know, letting the committee know, because things are compressed. And if people want to join, they can put their hand up.
Yeah, I'd like to attend as best on my schedule will allow.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And one more thing I would like to highlight on this list of dates. You basically talked about the start of bidding. I do want to just mention the approach here to starting the project on time. We've pretty much used up all the float. There's no float left. So in order to start work on time, we're going to need the building committee to approve what I call critical trade contractors. In other words, those are the ones that we need to get going right away. You won't have the GMP done. The guaranteed maximum price won't be done. You will have an overall cost summary because all the bids will be in. So you'll have a financial picture, but it will be ahead of getting the GMP approved. We're going to need to, get the site contractor, the electrician, the concrete, the steel. There's certain trade contractors we're going to have to say, you need to approve them in order for us to stay on schedule. We don't have the luxury of time to get everybody vetted, give you a whole GMP before you go. Again, you'll have the overall financial picture, but the GMP is going to follow the go-ahead with these critical trade contracts, and that's reflected in this list as well.
That's your June 21st meeting. That's your June 21st.
Right. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that approach.
So that's a big one. First day of summer. Okay.
And I want to say too, I believe that we did end up having to employ the same strategy at Ox Ridge, where the critical trade contractors were, we presented them, the recommendations, and moved forward with them, with the committee's approval, and then followed up with the full guaranteed maximum price amendment once we had all the rest of the trades squared away in a similar fashion. So I believe there's some consistency.
Yeah, and again,
there.
I guess it's the same point. As stuff starts coming in that you think it would save time by having us, people who want to be involved in those discussions are seeing that stuff, so things can go more smoothly. Just we're not that big a committee, so send it around to people, and people who want to review it can review it. And by that, I would include obviously Kevin, and because of his input.
Now, the bid opening that's coming up on March 30th is virtual. The link is right in the addenda. I don't know if the building committee has seen the bid documents. I believe I sent out an invitation to bid when we first went out to bid that has the link. And Jill and Chris, I think I sent it to you. I'm not sure. I don't think I sent it to the entire committee. So if people wanted to attend the bid opening, they're more than welcome. You just need access to that link.
Laurel, can you resend it? I'll send it out to the committee.
Yeah, it might be helpful. Again, it might be helpful. Maybe just send out a calendar invite if you don't mind.
Yes. So who do I invite? Just Chris and Jill, or
invite the committee? Invite the committee, and people will accept or not if you don't mind.
Just I want to set your expectations that it is not exciting. Okay. It is not exciting at all.
It's our first one, so it's kind of like a big gender reveal, right? It's our first one.
The best part about those is when the rocket, when someone's got the detonator there the wrong direction. So.
Right.
Well, this is a new format for me too, because we're using Microsoft Teams to do the bid opening, which I'm not used to. I'm used to GoTo where people can just join. So I got to figure out what the setting is so people can all the bidders can just join, because to admit people is going to be a pain in the neck. I got to figure that one out.
All right. Awesome. Anything else from any of the committee members before we move to adjourn?
Not officially committee, but just.
Dr. Adley, sure.
Yeah, I just want to check with Laurel. Laurel, given that one of those PCR meetings that are happening the same day as the board meeting, when do we actually need all those signatures? We're going to have to run around certain people to get them. So when do we need those by?
You should have them by the 28th, but you guys won't because you didn't meet yet. So
yes. So
if you get them the 29th, we have our meeting 9:00 a.m. on the 29th. That'd be great to have them for then. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think realistically, if it's like the end of the week, I mean, if you recall with the other one that we went through, it was like a week delay before we were able to get the state the full set of signed paperwork from the various.
Well, we'll get them as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and again, I think to the point before of where I would just say that is whenever we can get them the information as soon as absolutely possible. What we want to do is, if they're looking for something from us, we want to get it to them as soon as possible to take the keep the pressure on them that they're the ones that have to write us the letter to authorize us to bid. You know what I mean? So just, I know that the term ASAP is open to interpretation, but just, you know, if we can get it to them on Wednesday, that would be great.
Okay. All right. Thanks. And just pass along thanks to Laurel because she's coordinating some meetings for our staff and our parents in May, so that's helpful.
And I am available for those dates, so I'll respond to the email.
That's fine. That's fine. Good. Thanks, Laurel.
So then the last thing, I guess, is just to confirm we're looking at our next committee meeting as April the 5th. Does that sound right to the team?
Yes,
Okay.
Chris, thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody, for hanging in there for a longer meeting this evening. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Dave Martin moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? Jill, Paul, you okay? Yay.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye. Mm-hmm.
Great. All right. So we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You
everyone.
too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.